On here to give my thoughts on some wrestling related news topics that have been going around recently, and obviously the main one being is the WWE Monday Night Raw versus TNA Impact on January 4th, 2010. First Monday of the new year is going to be ringing in for another not as big Monday Night War like WCW versus WWF was, but still somewhat a little competition on Monday nights between two wrestling promotions. And it's definitely going to be something that's going to be interesting to see. Now, obviously, the one thing is that WWE is obviously going to win this battle very easily. It shouldn't even be called a battle, but I got to give TNA a little props here. This is actually something they need to do. Try to catch most of the casual fans' attention and something like this, doing a live wrestling program on Monday. Even though I dislike Hogan and I'm hoping Hogan doesn't use too much political power within TNA. We'll just have to wait and see what he does within TNA. But the one thing is Hogan will bring in ratings. Now, it's going to bring in the number that Hogan's thinking that it's going to pull in. Hell no. Hogan is claiming that he thinks this January 4th edition of TNA Impact, the live Monday night edition of TNA Impact, is going to get a rating of a 3.0. And that is definitely not going to happen. I would say if Spike TV and TNA promote this well, and what I mean promote this well is they need to do several things to promote this well. First, they need to make sure they promote this pretty well online and on television. Now, WWE, they do something where another wrestling promotion cannot have a national ad during Monday Night Raw, but TNA can buy local time for ads during Monday Night Raw, which is something they definitely need to do. Make sure you pay for some ad placement in some of the big markets in the United States, namely New York City, LA, definitely Houston, some other, maybe San Antonio. Obviously, since TNA's in Florida, they'll probably do it in Florida around in Miami and Orlando, and Washington, D.C., and Chicago as well, and maybe even Boston. Those are the couple cities that I would say that you kind of need to promote this pretty well on television. Buy some, ads during Monday Night Raw, at least locally, since that's the only way that they're going to get a ad during, Monday Night Raw is if it's a local ad. It's not going to, be a national, ad that everyone's going to see. But just as long as you, get in some of those major markets during Monday Night Raw, that would be something that'd be good to do. Obviously, the thing they're doing in New York, they're putting up a couple of billboards around Times Square. That's a good thing to do. But what I'm expecting this Impact to do, I'm expecting it to probably get the rating I'm expecting it to get, because this is obviously, I think, going to be promoted pretty well from TNA and Spike TV. So I'm expecting it to do a better number than what they normally do on Impact, which that's the one thing TNA needs to look for, want to happen more than trying to, beat Monday Night Raw or try to get, Hogan's absurd number of a 3.0, is at least get, a bigger number than what you normally draw on Thursday nights, and when you do a taped Impact, which they kind of average between lowest a 1.0 to the highest a 1.3. What I'm expecting probably a 1.5, maybe a 1.6. If they do a lot of good advertisement of the show, maybe a 2.0. But the other thing is that on this Monday night, you got a college bowl game on between TCU and Boise State, and that game right there is going to get a lot of ratings as well. But the one thing I'll give some TNA fans over WWE fans is most of TNA's fans, no matter what's on Thursday night, they always tune in. That's the one thing. Their ratings pretty much always stay the same. But if there's something big on Monday night, a Monday night football game or something like that, that WWE's ratings kind of fluctuate, where TNA's ratings, where say they got some NFL game or a college game or an NBA game or something like that on Thursday nights, their ratings pretty much stay the same. So that's the one good thing there. Maybe this game with TCU and Boise State, maybe this will have some of WWE's numbers go down, and there's people that are aware of TNA. That's the one thing, is that even though TNA ratings only get a 1.0 or 1.3, people are at least aware of TNA's existence, whereas, independent companies like Ring of Honor and PWG, unless you're a diehard wrestling fan, most people don't know what the hell those companies are. But TNA, at least people know the existence. Just a lot of people choose not to watch it, or just, rather just watch, WWE, and they think, most casual fans, I guess, think TNA, WWE just alone by itself, pleases them, and they're not, diehard fans where they need another promotion. So there's some people that know TNA exists, just don't really want to go out their way to watch it. Now, the one thing they're going to have to do on this Monday night with TNA Impact, they're really going to have to do something good here. They're going to have to make it probably one of their best impacts ever. Put on, at least I would say, 1 or 2 pay-per-view quality matches. Put on a great X Division match to maybe start the show, or maybe have it at the beginning of the 9 o'clock hour, but I don't think they'll put a match there. What I'm thinking is they'll probably have a Hogan or something right around the 8:58 to 9:03 time to kind of have, somewhat, people be switching around, maybe, just switching to Monday Night Raw and, past Spike TV and see that Hogan's in the ring. And some people might say, hey, what's going on here? Might need to check this out. So they're going to have to do something there where every single, beginning of an hour, they're going to have something that people that aren't, that don't just tune in for TNA, just tune in to TNA, people that maybe have never seen the product before, have stuff, maybe familiar faces. But the one thing they need to do on this show is make sure they don't use it as a show to just promote the old guys like Sting and Hogan. Make it, kind of push the show the young guys in the X Division, make AJ look good on the show, and at the same time kind of, use your bigger guy, your big names to kind of bring in people to tune into your product. Then they'll kind of say, hey, I like what Hogan's doing here, I like what Sting's doing here, let me see what these other guys are, and you get some fans there. That's the one thing they need to do right there, is kind of create a good balance there between the old guys and new guys, because it can't be a 3-hour Impact live edition where it's pretty much Hogan and all his old pals pretty much running the show. Now, there have been a couple of rumors that some other stars might be making appearance other than Hogan and Sting on this TNA Impact. Some names have been thrown around that maybe RVD might show up. But the thing is, with RVD, he's at this moment, he will say, the only thing he has said that he will be open to the idea of going to TNA, but it would have to be, a very light schedule, and they would have to pay him pretty well. So I would say with RVD, it's definitely worth paying the money, because he's definitely one of those guys that a lot of fans like, and I think it would be worth paying him the money to just have him, work a light schedule with TNA, have him work the schedule Hogan's going to do or Sting's been doing, have him work that type of schedule. Now, Kennedy, there's been, over the last couple months, a lot of us probably expected Kennedy to go to TNA, but right now it seems like Kennedy is focusing more on his acting career right now, so it doesn't look like that's going to happen. Obviously, there's a chance of Ric Flair being involved on here, but other than that, I think those are the only ones. And JR's name's been thrown around because it's not sure, how much longer he's got with WWE, and he's kind of getting, I guess, a little frustrated with WWE that he might think about going to TNA, but the way his health is right now, if he did go to TNA, I don't know if he'd be able to even, do commentate, and he might just be some backstage role for TNA, which, for talent and relations with TNA, that would be someone good to have backstage for that type of reason right there. It's going to be interesting to see how this TNA Impact is, and obviously WWE, to counter this now, there's been rumors of them countering this with doing a 3-hour Raw, which if I was WWE, I think that is the dumbest idea to do right there, is to try to counter TNA with a 3-hour Impact. Just do your regular 2-hour live Raw, because the one thing is that if WWE does the 3-hour Raw, if they do compared to the 2-hour Raw, the 3-hour Raw isn't going to look like it's going to kill Impact compared to the 2-hour Raw that will look like it's going to kill Impact. Because the one thing that does hurt WWE a lot when they do these 3-hour Raws is the first hour does so poorly it hurts the whole overall rating, whereas the first hour does like a 2.5 or a 2.6, and the other 2 hours do a 3.6 to maybe a 3.8, and it just hurts the rating overall. So WWE wants to have a rating that looks hugely bigger than TNA, which even if they did the 3-hour Raw and their first hour does poorly like it always does when they do a 3-hour Raw, they're still going to beat TNA no matter what. But it's at least something that's going to be good to do. Now the one thing is I think the people that are huge WWE fans and huge TNA fans and are obviously supporting that company that Monday. The last thing I want to see is I wouldn't mind seeing competition on Monday nights or two wrestling promotions actually competing against each other. But the one thing that's bad about competition, especially if you do a Monday Night Wars Part 2 between TNA versus WWE, one of them is definitely going to go under, and then you're going to have another company out of business, and WWE is going to stay there as the main #1 company, because I don't think, unless something something weird happens, TNA is obviously never going to take over WWE, or no company is going to take over WWE, mainly just because of WWE's long history in the wrestling business. So that's going to be one thing that's going to be interesting right down low. Other thing I want to talk about is since I haven't done a video in about roughly a little over 2 weeks or so, the passing of Umaga. Just get my quick thoughts on that. Definitely sad to hear another passing of a professional wrestler. It's one of those things that just comes so normal with the wrestling business, which is a sad thing right there. This is so normal that there's so many wrestlers that die under the age of 40 and die at a very young age. And Umaga, he was definitely a good big man, and he was definitely good for what he did in WWE when he was there. And I think WWE really never used him to his full potential, because he definitely could have been better than what WWE ever used him as. But it's definitely just sad to see another wrestler die. So that's just the thoughts I wanted to give on that. Rest in peace, Umaga, and just send my condolences to the family and friends and the fans of Umaga. And another thing I want to talk about is the young superstars that are being pushed in WWE. A couple, younger wrestlers are starting to get pushes in WWE. Now, I'm going to kind of give these two guys the TLC pay-per-view this Sunday and see what they can do. At this point, they haven't really proved too much with me, but I want to at least give them a shot at this Sunday's TLC pay-per-view and then see what they do on there, especially the main one, which is the complete shocker of Sheamus getting a world title shot against John Cena at the TLC pay-per-view at a tables match. Obviously, John Cena is going to retain the title. I don't think there's anyone that thinks Sheamus has any chance on winning. It would be a complete shocker, but I don't think it would be a good thing for him to win the title, and it's way too early for him. I would say it's way too early to have him even in the main event. This is not going to be the main event. I'm thinking DX is probably in the main event, the pay-per-view, but still in a world title shot with really not doing much to really deserve being in a world title shot. All he's really done is pretty much, squash a couple jobbers, beat them up real quick. Jamie Noble kind of took him out. The thing he did with Jerry the King Lawler and Mark Cuban. That's really all he's really done. He hasn't really done much that makes you think this guy actually is going to have any chance with Cena. Now, they'll probably book the match in a way where he'll probably dominate most of the match. Then Cena will come back, and Cena will win the match right there. As far as the TLC pay-per-view coming up this Sunday, I will give my preview and predictions of that tomorrow, so I'll go more in depth of what I think of that pay-per-view tomorrow. But kind of the pay-per-view, it doesn't really look that appealing to me. I think it's just going to be, either it's going to be a throwaway pay-per-view, or at best it's going to be an average WWE pay-per-view, because it's really, other than the Christian and Shelton Benjamin match, there's really nothing I'm really looking forward to a lot on this. Now, do I think it's going to be like one of the worst pay-per-views of the year? No, but I think it's just going to be, typical, WWE throwaway pay-per-view, or, like I said, at best, an average pay-per-view. Now, the TNA pay-per-view Final Resolution coming up, mainly just because of the two main matches they're doing, which is the Desmond Wolfe, a.k.a. Nigel McGuinness, against Kurt Angle in the 2 Out 3 Falls match, and the world title match with Daniels and AJ Styles. That pay-per-view looks great just because of those two matches. I have a feeling it's probably going to be like the Turning Point pay-per-view, where most of the pay-per-view is just going to be based on those two matches, and those two matches I think are going to deliver so good this TNA is going to have another good pay-per-view coming up this month, but even though they're doing these, they did a great pay-per-view last month with Turning Point mainly because of the two main events, and looks like the same thing's going to happen this month. They kind of at least need to do a little better with the undercard of the pay-per-view because that's the one thing that kind of looked pretty weak and was pretty weak with the Turning Point pay-per-view and is kind of a little weak with this pay-per-view right here. I think they could have done a little better with the undercard, but the two main matches are probably going to be given, especially the 2 out of 3 falls matches. I'm expecting that in the main event will at least take up probably an hour and 15, an hour and 20 minutes. So it's going to take up a good portion of the pay-per-view. So with that, it should be a good pay-per-view from TNA. So just wanted to come on here, give my thoughts on some wrestling-related news topics and stuff that's going around the wrestling world right now, since I haven't done a video in a little over roughly 2.5, almost 3 weeks since I think the last video I did was probably my Survivor Series pay-per-view review. So just want to come on here, give my thoughts on this before I do my preview and predictions tomorrow. Then obviously my review of the TLC pay-per-views, late Sunday, or sometime early Monday. I'll do that. Promotions, and it's definitely going to be something that's going to be interesting to see. Now, obviously, the one thing is that WWE is obviously going to win this battle very easily. It shouldn't even be called a battle, but I got to give TNA a little props here. This is actually something they need to do. Try to catch most of the casual fans' attention in something like this, doing a live wrestling program on Monday. Even though I dislike Hogan, and I'm hoping Hogan doesn't use too much United States, namely New York City, LA, definitely Houston, some other, maybe San Antonio. Obviously, since TNA's in Florida, they'll probably do it in Florida, around in Miami and Orlando, and Washington D.C. and Chicago as well, and maybe even Boston. Those are the couple cities that I would say that you kind of need to promote this pretty well. On television, buy some, ads during political power within TNA. We'll just have to wait and see what he does within TNA. But the one thing is Hogan will bring in ratings. Now, is it going to bring in the number that Hogan's thinking that it's going to pull in? Hell no. Hogan is claiming that he thinks this January 4th edition of TNA Impact, the live Monday night edition of TNA Impact, is going to get a rating of a 3.0. And that is definitely not going to happen. I would say if Spike TV and TNA promote this on here to give my thoughts on some wrestling-related news topics that have been going around recently, and obviously the main one being is the WWE Monday Night Raw versus TNA Impact on January 4th, 2010. First Monday of the new year is going to be ringing in for another not as big Monday Night War like WCW versus WWF was, but still somewhat a little competition on Monday nights between two wrestling as well. And what I mean promote this well is they need to do several things to promote this well. First, they need to make sure they promote this pretty well online and on television. Now, WWE, they do something where another wrestling promotion cannot have a national ad during Monday Night Raw, but TNA can buy local time for ads during Monday Night Raw, which is something they definitely need to do. Make sure you pay for some ad placement in some of the big markets, and